Allegiance.
Join me in pledge allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may stay standing if you wish and join us in prayer. Heavenly Father, please help this council tonight in making decisions that will impact the community to the best of our ability. Help us to keep all our citizens safe and all the people in the city staff, especially our police and fire, safe from harm. And please bring back all our boys and girls, men and women who are overseas protecting our country. Bring them back safe. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. City Clerk, please read the roll.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gelser.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo.
Aye.
All present.
We have no expenditures to ratify under communications. Is it still first up? Centennial Committee? Yes. Centennial Committee, who's Paula?
Mayor and Council, I'm happy to be here to talk about the Centennial Committee after 2 long years. We recruited 27 members 2 years ago. That's 3 years before the state centennial on February 14th, 2012. And 27 members of an ad hoc committee are a lot of members, but we knew that with such a long term of 3 years, we'd probably lose a few people. Well, I will say we have lost a few people, but many have hung in there for the past 2 years. And we've added some new members. Many of them are in the audience, so as I'm going to read you the names of the committee members, and I'm going to ask them to stand. They'll come up later on as a part of the presentation. Former Mayor Bill Arnold, Sherry Blattner, Wally Campbell, Sherilyn Holman, Roxanne Robles, Jerry Wilson, Ben Trujillo. These are people who have hung in the entire 2 years so far. And also, I have to say, so have Pat Blair and Dolores Brown from Mobile, who have driven an hour and a half round trip, hour and a half one way each time to come to the meetings. They made most of them. We also have some newer members that came on in the past year: Norma Chastain, Amy Gilbert, Stan Jefferson, and Mark Pelletier. So as I said, we've been meeting for about 2 years. Since the beginning, we knew we were going to tackle the train depot as a restoration project, basically because Matt Hansen, when he was here, had already put it in for a legacy project with the state, and it was adopted as one of the first projects. However, because the committee knew that this was going to be a very long haul to get this train station restored, mostly because it should cost almost $400,000 just for the restoration, and we had to find a site for it. So they looked at a lot of other projects in addition and thought, we can take on a lot of things maybe, or take on a couple others that might be finished by the time the centennial comes around, and therefore you would have more visibility. So we started out looking at a history wall at the new city hall, and that was being planned as a great project for a while until the city center was stopped, delayed. So then it was like, okay, let's come up with another one. So then we talked about having children do artwork in the metal frames that exist on the Cotton Lane Bridge, and tried to work with the Arts Commission on art for that bridge. Well, that didn't work out. We were hoping the Arts Commission had the funding. They didn't have the funding. And so, it was, pretty far away, and people wanted something actually that would be more visible. So that project went by the wayside after we'd worked on that for a while. So then they looked at maybe trying to do art representing state history around the well at Palmatier Park. Also hoping that the Arts Commission had some money to help with that one, but it didn't. So after about a year and a half of working on all these different projects, the committee decided to concentrate on just raising money for the train depot and saying, okay, this is it, this is our project. So what I want to do is just let you know that in the latest in focus, which could be in homes right now, the cover is devoted to the committee's work on the Centennial and the upcoming event, which you'll hear about later, and the inside page is also devoted to it. So hopefully now people will begin to know more about the committee's work, because we're down to finally having real things to work on and real events to work on. So I'll introduce Mayor Arnold so he can talk about the actual work we've done on the train park, because he's been named chairman of the train depot. He's been named chairman of the train depot project.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Pizzoli
Push
and
that.
members of the council. Okay, very happy to be here this evening to talk about this. If everyone remembers several years ago, the 50th anniversary celebration, this is one of the projects that they also wanted to do, but because of the lack of funds and because the gentleman that owned the train depot at that time had financial difficulties, he could not sell it to us. But I look at this as a job undone, and I was very happy to step forward and be the chair of this committee. Anyway, we started out with the idea of a train park, similar to the ones in Chandler, Anthem, and Scottsdale. And if you visited that area, you know that it's kind of a kiddie park type of a train park also. We worked with the parks department in the plan for the new city center and the university park. We thought that would be an ideal location for it, but as you know, funds were limited, so we had to look elsewhere, and that would have been a long ordeal. So we spent the time meeting with staff and trying to find a possible place besides the 40-acre university park where the Cedar City was going to be. Other projects that we worked on didn't come about, and we went on a bus tour to take a look at what the city owned as far as properties. We drove by the old train station to get a good look at it, and then we went over to the dog park, and we thought, well, the city owns this park, and maybe there'll be a small park in that park, a small location in that park, but that kind of eliminated any type of a kiddie type of arrangement or a picnic park because there just wasn't enough room there. So the opportunity for possibly locating it on Litchfield Road came about with the Crane property. We thought, this is the Litchfield Historical Train Depot. Maybe it would be great if we could locate it there on Litchfield Road. And I know the Three Rivers Historical Society was very excited about that location, and they were certainly looking forward to that. But again, we were unable to get the land donated to us, so we looked elsewhere. And then about the same time, we learned that the 99 acres that the city owned around the wastewater treatment plant was going to be planned. And so talking to the city manager and the staff, we got the city manager's commitment for a 5-acre section there. We have no idea yet where it's going to be, but it's going to be within that 99-acre area. And we have that opportunity to plan that park now. We know it's going to be beyond the time that the Centennial is going to be. It's coming right at us in less than a year. So, but anyway, we're very excited about that. So we turned our attention to other things, and we have Sherilyn Holman here, the director of the Chamber of Commerce, and she's going to give you a little brief introduction to what we've been working on as far as fundraising. Okay, Sherilyn?
Go. Thank you.
Once again, if you'll just give me a second to rise to the occasion. I think this will work.
There you are.
I have risen.
There you go.
No disrespect. No disrespect intended. You know, when you're talking about a project like the train depot, we're talking about the need to raise funds. But we also, as a Centennial Committee, needed to plan some events to generate some ownership with our residents on our participation with the Centennial Committee. So we could kind of proverbially kill two birds with one stone by planning some events. And I do want to assure you, we do have a grant writer on our committee. We are very, very lucky. And she is working with the city's grant writer to look for perhaps larger funds should they be out there. And the consensus is that there probably is, but we're going to have to dig for it. So that is going on in another forum from what the committee in general is looking. Proud to say we have planned our first event, and that's the one that Paula was talking about being in the In Focus. It will be a classic car show and barbecue on April 30th in front of the ballpark from 10 to 2. One of our local residents, Charlie Miller, is very involved with classic car shows, and he identified a group called the Arizona Classic Car Hobbyist Council who had lost their venue for their annual event. So the plan is for them to join us, which means we'll have 150 of the best classic cars in the state. And it's an established event, which just adds more to what we're trying to do. Sometimes when the timing is right, it just works. So it's very, very exciting to us. It looks like we will partner, and we will have then the proceeds from the barbecue, and the classic car show will keep their funds. And some students from Verrata High School have already stepped forward and offered to help us with the logistics of the first event. So that's very, very exciting. With all of the neighborhood groups that have emails going with our In Focus advertising, and of course the word of mouth, we really think we can get the word out to our citizens and start that synergy that we need for our centennial event. We also have planned a fall event. Let me rephrase that. It is in planning for a fall event. We have not identified a date, nor have we identified exactly what it's going to look like. We're still trying to put those pieces together, but that is a second event that we're planning. And the third thing that we've identified is a parade. Everybody wanted a parade to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the state of Arizona. We are in discussion with the Avondale, Arizona Centennial Committee as well to see if there's a partnership. We haven't confirmed that as yet. We will go ahead with our date has been established as February 11th of 2012. Hopefully we can partner, but if not, we are going to have a parade. And then I have to tell you, every now and then, not every now and then in Goodyear, regularly in Goodyear, citizens respond and do exciting things, and we work together when you identify the need and the opportunity. And that happened. One of the members of our group contacted the Estrella Mountain Quilters of Pebble Creek and asked them if they would consider doing a quilt for the Arizona Centennial Committee for us to raffle off and have an ongoing, as an ongoing fundraiser. They immediately responded positively and got to work on it. I have been told 300 hours have gone into the making of this quilt. They broke it into segments. There is some traditional, the pattern of flying goose pattern. The stitching was created just for our quilt. The value, when it was appraised, was $775, but that does not count the volunteers' time. They do not consider that in labor into the making of the quilt. Kind of weird, but that's the way it works. We are going to be selling raffle tickets, and I'm going to just blatantly advertise. It's $5 a ticket or 6 for $25, and I expect all those wallets to start coming out just like now. They will be available at the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce and the lobby at City Hall and with the Goodyear Parks and Recreation. We're very excited, and it's my pleasure. I would like to, we'd like to show our appreciation to the quilters. Is it exciting to have people who identify a need to respond positively? We identify a budget, go to work, get the materials together, and proceed with it, and that's exactly what happened. I think our city of Goodyear is particularly sets themselves apart in that arena, and these women certainly did. So we would like to introduce you to the City Council tonight and present them with a plaque to say thank you. Would the Centennial Committee members and the quilters please come to the front? We would like to present them with this plaque.
Cool.
Don't make me say it twice. This is awesome.
Oh, the quilt's in the back. I've seen it. It's right here. That's all worth it.
And Mayor Priscilla, would you come down and join us to be in the picture, please?
City stuff.
Don't hurt me.
It's nice.
Why don't you come and hold one of the, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
I should not be here. I should be there, but who in your group will accept the plaque from us, please?
Kathy or Wendy? Come over here. You need to get
I already said that, Paula. Where is Kathy? Hi, Kathy, would you accept our appreciation of accepting this plaque? And I would, if one of the quilters would hold the plaque up in the picture as well. And then if you'll excuse me, I'll get over there. I don't look like I did anything. No, I don't take credit.
Real friendly.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little later than I thought. Okay. Anyway, a lot of crap going on. Well, I'll still eat dinner, but you go ahead and eat. Okay, good. Okay, see. Okay, I'll see you when you get home. Bye.
With the wide angle lens. Guess you better trot down to City Hall and buy some tickets. Cool. Are you going to auction that off too? Do we have a Centennial bank account yet? Guess we better put a fund in. If it's not budgeted.
First, I would like to thank you all of giving of your time to build such a beautiful quilt for a worthy cause. Again, let's give them a hand. Next, we have Paula. You're going to give us an update on some economic development in the retail area?
I just saw the back of it.
I'm actually not going to go into the retail because we ended up giving it last week. That was last week we talked to you about us having landed in the past 6 months over 420,000 square feet of retail, which now has us down to 15% vacancy in retail, which is very good for us since we had probably the most square footage built at the end of the reception than any other city in the valley. But I want to talk to you a little bit more about the industrial projects that we have had going on. So far this year to date, we've had 47 projects, industrial, basically. We've had 34 site visits. Now, site visits are something that really does turn into sort of a project. Sometimes we end up a finalist, sometimes we don't. But most of these are GPEC leads, but probably we had about 3 times that many what we call e-tracks from GPEC that tell us about companies that come in that don't result in, we send in buildings or we send in land if we have the appropriate type of thing to answer the e-track with. And most of the time, I'd say 3/4 of the time, it doesn't result in a site visit, but we had 34 in total. 25 of these were manufacturing, 2 were aerospace, 2 were fulfillment centers, like the Macy's and Amazon that we have. 2 were healthcare, 1 was an office, and 1 was an office. We also worked on 8 of the major retail projects that came in that I was talking about last week. We now have 13 active projects that we're working on. Some of them I can mention the companies' names and some of them I can't. There are 3 companies that are in manufacturing that are under construction. As you know, Sub-Zero, Arizona Galvanizing, which is expanding, and Tower, which is still considered under construction, but they're on hold temporarily. We have 2 companies that have bought land for expansion, CTCA and Macy's. We have 1 company that will be building build-to-suit soon in Goodyear Crossings, National Oil Well Varco, which should start in the spring. 2 other companies have located here and already are in business, Prime Solutions Group Engineering, and the Mountain Park Medical in the building next door. A local manufacturing company, which I can't name, is looking for a larger building for expansion. And so we're going to have to work to find the right spot for them in Goodyear to maintain them in Goodyear. 3 different companies have us as a finalist on their list. 1 should announce any day. We were hoping we could announce it for you tonight, but we can't. The other 2, we really are 2 other manufacturers, 1 food, 1 solar, and all of them, if we got all of them, would be $45 million in capital investment and over 300 jobs. There are also 2 companies which are expanding the number of employees. That's Arizona Galvanizing. As they expand their building, they're also going to be adding employees. And Aero Turbine at our airport has some new contracts which will result in more employees. Tonight, we have the general manager of Aero Turbine in Goodyear, Skip Majorana. Barry Kidd of his operation is here too, as is his boss, David Miller, the executive VP of the Miami, Florida operations for Aero Turbine. So Skip will come up and personally tell you about Aero Turbine's expansion plans at our airport. Skip.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Mr. Mayor, City Council, you're going to have to excuse my voice. I have a horrible cold, so please bear with me. Thank you for the time. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you and tell you a little bit about Aero Turbine. Earlier today, I had a chance to meet for the first time with Harry and Paul from the Economic Development Group, and they suggested, I've talked to them before, but I've never met them, and they suggested that we come over here and tell you a little bit about some of the plans that we have, and actually where we came from and where we want to go. So if you'll indulge me for just a few minutes, I just want to tell you a little bit about Aero Turbine. Aero Turbine, as a company, started back in the mid-'90s, back in Miami, Florida. And basically what they did is they sold parts. They sold aircraft parts. Specifically, turbine engine parts is really what they sold. Things grew and grew and grew, and ultimately back in 2006, they were looking for a place to call home, find their own, get their own airplanes, tear their own airplanes apart, and really have just a focus on their ability to keep control of all these projects that they had going. So they took the aeroturbine facility, what is now the aeroturbine facility here at the airport. Well, as normal things go in our business, business was good. Just about that time in 2006, 2007, it was almost about the same time, we had a group called AirCap, which is now our mother company from Amsterdam. They came over and they purchased AeroTurbine. All of a sudden, they went from a very small company to a very big company. And AirCap is a $15 billion corporation out of Amsterdam that has holdings all over the world. It is actually the third largest independent aircraft leasing company in the world. So as part of that, again, this group, AirCap, bought this facility to work on its own airplanes. Airplanes that were coming from lease, airplanes that were coming from air carriers, going to new carriers, and that's what we did for a couple of years. In 2008, the decision was made, we're going to grow this business. That was about the time I came on board, and some others came on board, and we started to grow the business. Unfortunately, as everyone knows, what 2009 brought not only to our industry, to the whole economic crisis that we've seen in the States and in the world. So, quite frankly, we did nothing but pull back. We just imploded all through 2009 and for the first part of 2010. And it was, even in this economic time, that economic time, we actually did fairly well. We kept our nose above water, and that was what it was all about for us at that time. 2010 rolled around, things got better. The decision was made just recently, about 6 months ago, we're going to go grow the business again. And quite frankly, the time is right. The time is right in the industry, and the time is right for us. Right now, we have gone from about 75 employees to about 150, and we're looking at going to probably 200 to 220 by the end of the year. We've just recently signed a contract for 31 airplanes with the major airlines. I'm sorry I can't announce that here, who they are, but I'm sure you'll see the livery in and out of our hangar over there. Good group of folks, though, to work with. We're really excited about it. We've just recently signed an agreement with a group called Avios out of Canada, which is actually the technical services arm of Air Canada. It used to be Air Canada Technical Service, and they changed the name to Avios. We just recently inked that contract, too. So we're going to be doing a lot of their overflow work. So at the end of the day, I didn't want to take up a lot of your time, but we're really looking forward to this. 2011 is going to be a great year for us. A lot of things happening. In typical fashion, things are taking off a lot quicker than we thought that they were going to. But that's good for us. And I just want you to know, I know there's been a lot of people in and out of that facility. But in August, we'll be here 5 years. And we plan on being here for a long time. So, I just want to tell you that, again, this military use, we're going to take a lot of, we're going to make use of that. Definitely we are. I know there's been a lot of discussions about it's a boneyard, it's not a boneyard. I think everyone needs to understand, we had about 80 airplanes there last year. We're down to about 30. We've got about a 50 aircraft difference, but what's important to realize is we've had over 100 airplanes coming in and out of that have transitioned and gone down. Mm-hmm. So it's a good thing. The industry is really starting to turn around. One of our challenges for our sales team is to go out and fill that storage field, so we're going to have to do that. But again, a lot of good things going on. We're excited to be part of the community. Anytime you'd like to come out, I've told Harry and his group, please come out and see us. We'd love to host you. And unless there's any questions, we're looking forward to 2011. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Welcome aboard and good luck.
You.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about economic development at this time? Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Paula. At this time, it's Katie. You're going to give us an overview of the Neighborhood Stabilization Program?
Thank you, Vice Mayor and members of the council. The Housing and Economic Recovery Act of 2008 established the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, or NSP, in order to provide assistance to those areas that were hit hardest by the foreclosure crisis, Arizona being one of those areas. The program was decided to be put under the Community Development Block Grant rules, and so it's being administered by the Maricopa County Human Services Department, much like the CDBG program. And it's also being overseen by the Community Development Advisory Committee, which Councilmember Cavalier is our member, and Councilmember Osborne is our alternate. Through this program, Maricopa County received just under $10 million in NSP funds to expend in the city of Goodyear, as well as the towns of Buckeye, El Mirage, and Youngtown. And 4 nonprofit organizations were selected to be subrecipients of these funds. And those include the Housing Authority of Maricopa County, who received $6.2 million. And what they're doing is they're purchasing homes, rehabbing them, focusing on energy efficiency for sustainability, and then selling those homes to qualifying low to moderate income residents. And 10 homes have been purchased in Goodyear through that program. Next is Exito, Inc., and they received approximately $1.7 million. And those homes are being purchased and rehab, and then they're being used for supportive rental housing for seniors. And 11 homes have been purchased in Goodyear through that program. Catholic Charities received $775,000, and they are also rehabbing homes and using those for supportive rental housing. And just as a little story of the type of people who are helped by this program is the first home under this program was occupied in Goodyear this past December, and it was a refugee family, a family of 4, and they were from the Sudan, and they had this was their first single-family home. They'd been living in cramped apartments since 2005. They spent 12 years in refugee camps before then, and finally their children have a yard to play in, they're part of a community, and it was just a wonderful story to see how these people are actually helped by these programs. And through that program, 7 homes have been purchased in Goodyear. Finally, the Neighborhood Housing Services of Southwest Maricopa County received $250,000, and they're doing a home buyer assistance program. No homes have been purchased in Goodyear yet through that program, but they just received their money in the last quarter of 2010, so we're still hopeful that some homes in Goodyear will benefit from that program. And so due to these NSP funds, not only have residents been helped and be able to own and live in homes where they haven't before, but 28 previously foreclosed homes have been purchased and rehabbed in the city of Goodyear. And so they're now an asset to the community rather than being an eyesore and a problem for the community. And I just wanted to mention that we do have additional information on these programs on our website, and I was going to put some of my business cards out front if anybody's interested in how to participate in any of these programs. I think there is still availability. So I can take any questions if you have them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sergeant Justin Hughes, I'm going to give an overview on the Offenders Watch Program.
The Offender Watch program was actually established to give the
Yeah.
public the ability to not only monitor but to track registered sex offenders living within a specific community. The City of Goodyear is one of only 6 Valley agencies to adopt this program. Most importantly, it's a free program to not only to the city itself but to any resident that logs on. Lieutenant Singleton will show you. We'll actually click on the Offender Watch site. This is on the actual City of Goodyear site. You click on the police link and then click on the big red box at the bottom where it says Protect Your Family, and this is what it'll bring up. We'll do a quick navigation. The top left corner where it says Search for Offenders in Your Area. Now that gives you a couple different criteria that you can search. You can search a specific area by address. You can search by an offender's name. You can search by city. So if you want to click area, what we'll do is we'll put in the address to our police department. I don't want to click on a specific offender, show bias. But what we'll do is we'll click on I'll put in the address of our police department, and what this will do is, once it pops up, put in the zip code, 85338, and scroll down. Okay, as you can see, it's set right now, the radius is a quarter of a mile. This will bring up every offender that is required to register within a quarter mile, and it will also list schools, daycares, specific points. So if there's a resident that wants to enroll their child in a school, daycare, and they want to know, is there a registered offender that's living in that area, this is a great tool to use if you want to back out of there. Or actually click on, the next box is register for email alerts. Anyone that uses this site can actually go in, register, and will get updated emails when a registered offender actually registers into this site. Now let me back up just a little bit. When an individual is convicted of a specific crime, part of their conviction may be that they have to register. They register through Maricopa County, which once they are registered, will upload into our offender tracking system. There's two parts to this. There's the public end, which we're showing you now. We have the law enforcement end, to where we as police officers have the ability to track and also upload updated information on these offenders. Another box is the safety tips. And as you can see on the right, there's a couple different areas you can click on. Community awareness flyers, things to know. Under community awareness flyers, there's about 50 different flyers that you can actually print out. I printed out 2 of them tonight that I'll actually leave outside if anyone would like to pick up a copy. One of them is safety tips for children, and the other is safety tips for parents. So this is a great tool for any community leader, HOA. This is an enhanced service that's offered by the Goodyear Police Department. And we actually, like I said, this is our way of monitoring and tracking sex offenders that actually live within the city. There is, the links is not up yet. In fact, this just went live about 3 weeks ago, so we're still making some adjustments to the site. There is a contact box. Myself and Detective Green, who is actually the facilitator of this program for the Goodyear Police Department, would be happy to put on any presentation for any HOA groups, schools, anyone that's wanting a more detailed overview of not only this program but other programs that we offer. Any questions from the council?
I just have a brief one.
One right here. Go ahead. Yes.
When it uploads, does it also get that pinhead? Because I know the DPS site, if you click on that, it can see what crime and what level they are. Does all that come on ours?
Yeah, and that's, if you want to go to search real quick, no.
I didn't know if you wanted to put that up here, and I just wondered if...
If you click on name, but let's not actually, or put in city. When you put in the city of Goodyear, and I don't want you to do this, when you put in the city of Goodyear, it will list every subject that is ordered to register. The city of Goodyear has 9 right now, which is a very low number for the size of Goodyear. It will list personal information to include name, the address of the individual, the crime committed. It will even give you a very detailed summary, which I don't advise you read, but it will give you a detailed summary of the crime that they actually committed. So you can actually, it's not a pin, it's a magnifying glass. So when you put in a name or you put in city, and I invite everyone to use this site and to familiarize yourself with it, you will actually see it'll list the offenders, it'll show a picture of them, it'll show their address, and you can click on the little box, and it will absolutely give you detailed information on that individual.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you. Good job.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you, when the map comes up, I saw that schools and daycare centers were identified as a geographic object on the map. Does the offender's address or does the location of where the offender lives come up also?
It actually was. We just went through it so quick that you didn't see it. But yes, there is I believe it's a red pin that will show where the offender actually lives. Next to it will be a box with the offender's address. And you can actually expand that search from a quarter mile to, I believe, up to 5 miles. And it will pinpoint every offender.
Do some of these offenders have restrictions on they can't live within a mile of a school or a daycare center or, I don't...
There are, but they will not be listed on the website. They're
But
listed
you
on-
guys are checking
Absolutely.
against their parole against where they actually live.
Correct. Anytime an offender who has to register moves into the city of Goodyear or any other city, they have to register with that city.
Okay.
And an assessment is done. I don't want to go into detail, but an assessment is done where they're given a certain level, and we will upload that information. But yes, we do know which offenders can live in a certain area. If they are precluded from living by a school, by daycare, yes. But we do know that on the law enforcement side. That's not on the public side.
Okay, thank you very much.
I did have one question. It sounds like a lot of great information on this site, and I think you mentioned that, did you say you were going to go out to HOAs to let them know that this is available? Or, I mean, how are you going to get the information to the public that they can go on here and find this information?
We actually
Schools,
have,
whichever.
Correct. We have a community resource officer who actually goes out. I'm actually going to meet with him and give him some of these flyers. Like I said, when you click on the safety tips, there's several different flyers that come up. So these are the things that we're going to task him with.
Okay.
But not only that, anytime we have to do additional information on a registered offender, we do a media release.
Okay.
But there is a link, like I said, on the city website. So when someone is actually on the site navigating around, the big red box kind of yells out at
Well,
you.
that was noticeable. Just sometimes we have a lot of great information on our website, and then people just don't know it's there.
Absolutely.
So that's why I was asking how you're going to get it out.
But we are going to rely on word of mouth as well.
Okay.
So if you are speaking with the HOA leaders or other community members, word of mouth is a lot of times what gets this information out.
I
Mr. Mayor?
appreciate the good work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, just real quick, I think I know PD has an outreach program. It's kind of nice to see what you can do, I guess, with some of the others up there to try to get that information out because it's great information.
Absolutely. We will do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That's also, Councilmember Osborne, why we're doing presentations like this. We're trying to get the message out to the community on many different things each week. And so this was really a great one, and I thank them for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now it's time for citizens' comments from the floor. I ask you, if you come up to speak into the microphone, keep your comments to 3 minutes. Because of the open meeting law, we cannot comment or discuss the specific issue, but we can provide direction, to council, to the staff, or we can respond to direct criticism. With that, do we have any?
I have
Cars.
one, Roger Matlin.
Come on up, Roger.
Good evening. Roger Matlin, Goodyear, Arizona. And tonight I wanted to bring up an open or non-agenda item because I've been hearing this a lot while I've been walking around neighborhoods from people. And that was a concern about a lot of people have been saying to me here in Goodyear that when they've come to council meetings, it seems like the council doesn't really care. That they get their 3 minutes, they get up in front of the council, they make a presentation, and the council basically listens to them and then blows them off after that. And that's why a lot of people don't come to council meetings anymore. Now, I found that to be true with this council, and especially with you, Joe Pizzillo.
I appreciate the support, Roger.
And I'm disappointed because I didn't expect that out of you especially. But I hear that comment from a lot of people, and I'm a little surprised by it. So what I wanted to request was, is there a specific policy and procedure for taking public comments, and then is there a policy and procedure for responding to those comments?
I'll answer that. Yes, there is. Because of the open meeting law, and I'm sure you're well aware of that, we cannot discuss anything that you bring before us. What we can do is we can provide direction to the council, to the manager, to provide a yellow paper, which we have in the past, So that's why I'm somewhat surprised with the comments that you're getting out there. Or we can further refer it to the manager to put it on an agenda item. So, I mean, that's basically the policy. So if you have anything specific with a yellow paper, that we can ask them to research, and we've done that for you in the past, okay? Or if it's an issue, we had a gentleman here the other day that came in and talked about water. Initially, we had a yellow paper that came to us, as well as the Public Works Director and staff went out there to resolve that issue. So, hey, I just find it unusual that you're receiving that, but that's okay. We try our best to discuss what we can at this forum because we're prohibited to continue those discussions because of the open meeting law. So with that, if you have something specific we can refer from a yellow, I'd be more than glad to do that for you, Roger.
And I understand the comments are coming from, I'm talking to hundreds of people, but I was surprised because certain neighborhoods that have had issues that have made presentations and talking to some of the HOA presidents, I was surprised that I get that kind of feedback, that they really felt like it was just a waste of time, that they no longer felt like they were being represented. And when I heard it from so many people, I was a little overwhelmed that many people thought that way of the city council and the representation they're getting. So.
Well, I can tell you, Roger, and I can probably speak for most of the people up here, any questions or concerns we have in the neighborhood are passed to the manager to be resolved. And I can tell you firsthand that anything that I've gotten from an email refers to that if there's issues out there. So, yeah, I mean, if you've got anybody that's running across, you tell them, give them my email. Be more than glad to discuss any issues they have with them. Roger.
I have.
Okay.
Yours and City Manager Fishbach's email as well, but
Just
again,
pass them on to me, Roger. I'd be more than glad to work with them, okay?
All right, fantastic. And I'd just like to, if I could, the presentation by the police department was very well done, and I appreciate them doing that. So, just thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Any other cards? No. Okay. At this time, let's see, we have the consent agenda. Could you please read by title only?
Item A, approve draft minutes of a regular meeting held on Monday, February 14th, 2011. Item B, approve the preliminary plat for Estrella Parcel 7.1, subdividing 16.49 acres into 71 single-family lots and 10 tracts located at the northwest corner of Estrella Parkway and Calistoga Drive within the Estrella Mountain Ranch Villages 7 and 9 planned area development, subject to stipulations. Item C, approve the preliminary plat for Estrella Parcel 7.5, subdividing 17.93 acres into 71 single-family lots and 11 tracts located at the southwest corner of Estrella Parkway and Calistoga Drive within the Estrella Mountain Ranch Villages 7 and 9 planned area development, subject to stipulations. And item D, approve the preliminary plat for Estrella Parcel 9.1, subdividing 22.92 acres into 94 single-family lots and 9 tracts located approximately 800 feet north of the northwest corner of Estrella Parkway and Willis Road within the Montecito Phase 3 planned area development, subject to stipulations.
With that, is there any from the public that would like to remove or got a question on any items?
Yes. 7A, Roger Matlin, 7B, Roger Matlin, and 7D, Roger Matlin.
Roger, do you have a question or do you want to pull them off? Pull them?
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything, I guess, the council has would like to pull? So might as well get them all at the same time?
I have a question on the parcel 9.1, but when it gets pulled, I'll ask my
Is that
question.
one of the ones that Roger's looking to pull?
I believe so.
Okay, with that, I guess, can we move forward with a presentation on those particular items?
9.1.
Which one's the first one, Roger?
He pulled 7A, which is the minutes.
Do you want a presentation or do
Okay,
you want the
excuse me,
question?
on the minutes, no, never mind. What's the question on the minutes?
Well, on the minutes, I was just, I've had this concern before in the past, and I'm expressing it again, and that is, it seems like the minutes are becoming more and more a way of the city and pardon my language here, but the city covering its ass
Well, watch the language.
rather than actually noting what was asked or presented. And the reason is because on one of the items that was in the minutes, it had to do with the Meritage homes, and that was an item that I had requested be pulled when I submitted my speaker card, and it wasn't, and I know one of the council members voted against it. It was for that item, not all three items that were being considered. And so I just would like that with regard to the minutes, that one, it be reflected if an item is specifically being asked to be pulled or just grouped in with other items so that not only the public but all of you can vote on it properly. And two, the minutes themselves, I had asked a question about whether or not the council was willing to speak with the developer about changing the amount of money that was, in my opinion, essentially being waived. It was the $6 million of the Meritage Homes deal, and that would the council be willing to consider a different amount? And that was not reflected as a question. The only thing that was reflected that I asked the question about why was it being changed. And I just want to make sure that you're representing, again, and this gets back to my previous comment, people get up here and ask a question. I would expect you to present that in the record, not to legally cover yourselves. So.
Mr. Matlin, would you like the record to reflect your inaccuracies of asking the questions? Because the $6 million was not waived. It was set on a different payment plan. And if you understood that, you would obviously know that the minutes reflected, what you asked. And, if you'd like your inaccuracies posted, I'm sure we could have them, denoted in the minutes.
Absolutely, Councilmember Gelser. I would love that to be, because my inaccuracies came from the document provided by the city. So that was the only documentation I had to go off of. And in addition, we had a 4-year gap in which the developer was supposed to have paid $1.5 million per year and hadn't paid those monies based on that documentation. And so, based on the hearing that came in front of the council on February 14th, they had failed to perform under the agreement. So in my view, if you don't pay for 4 years your $1.5 million each year, you have not only defaulted on the agreement, but you have not.
I'm sure you have the opportunity to file a legal action if you think that was in error, and I'm sure that the city attorney would be happy to work with you on that.
I'm not here to file legal actions. I'm here to make sure that our city does its job correctly.
Our city is doing its job correctly. Thank you.
We'll get some feedback on that one for you, Roger, if you would. Second one, what was the second one that he wanted pulled? Which was it, B?
Yes.
Okay.
Preliminary plat for Estrella parcel.
Hold on, we're going to need a presentation here, Roger.
Might as well put these all in the business.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, did you want a full presentation or just staff answer questions?
That's the question.
Well, I tell you what, if I can get maybe the specific question from Roger, maybe you can address that. How's that? Or anybody else that has questions, so we can kill two birds with one stone on B. For Roger, what's your question on B?
And if I could, I'll try to consolidate, because B and D are essentially the same, as far as I'm concerned. And I just want to know, why are we approving additional developments at this time when we have so many homes in Goodyear that are in foreclosure? I know Katie made that presentation earlier. Walking through neighborhoods, including Palm Valley, where you live, I'm getting a lot of feedback from people saying half of our neighborhood are now rentals or vacant properties. And so it would seem strange to me that you're continuing to build on the outer limits of the city or approve development on the outer limits of the city when so many people internally are struggling in our city. And I'm just trying to figure out why would you do such a thing. I do know there is a development that is adjacent to or within a half mile of parcel 7.1, which has over 50% of their homes are unoccupied. And that came from the representative for that community that's up in Estrella Mountain. And so why would you be approving more homes? Doesn't that have a negative impact on the community as a whole?
So I assume, D, you have the same question? Just
Yes,
the same thing?
so
Okay.
if we will consolidate those two together.
Okay, thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, when the developer submitted his applications to the city, what we're looking at, first of all, is for conformance with our subdivision regulations, our engineering design guidelines, all our regulations with this subdivision review. We're also looking to make sure that this is consistent with the entitlement that Newland has, which both items were. They have an existing zoning to permit this type of development, so when staff did our review, that's what we're looking at. We could not say no to accepting an application that they're perfectly entitled to submit. So that is one of the aspects of the application that staff looks at. This is also a preliminary plat. It's one of the early stages. It's the first phase of subdivision review. At this point, it's early in the process. We're looking at preliminary designs for engineering, for the subdivision, for landscaping. Newland is still probably several months, a few years out from developing these parcels further. I know Newland could probably elaborate further on that, but that's our general knowledge of how this process works. They're working on water, sewer right now, other infrastructure plans. These plats, once the preliminary plats are reviewed and approved, they'll start working on that. Again, their timetables are their own, but again, they're several months out to working on it. But again, at this point, we found these subdivisions were next to existing infrastructure. They didn't have to bring in a lot of lines to serve these properties. Existing roads, existing water, sewer, that was something that we looked at as prime development in the sense that these properties had existing services. So I don't know if that answered the question, Mr. Mayor, but I can elaborate further if there's, Mr. Matlin has anything further.
I think it's answered the question. So right now we have, make sure I've got the rules down here right, we've got A, B, and D pulled. Is that correct? Let me ask you this, it was also...
I have a question on, let me get the correct agenda item here. And I think the developer or the Newland representative can answer this. On D, could I have the Newland representative? Or Steve, on page, on the 9.1 parcel on page L1-2, which is a landscape parcel, there's a whole big blank area on the north end of the parcel. Is that mountain, ridge, retainer? It's not being landscaped. It doesn't show what's going on. Could you elaborate? And then I'm happy.
It's a mountain.
Yeah. Well, this area.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Gelzer, sheet L12.
Yes, please. Is that like 20% slope area that is being left in a natural state?
Mr. Mayor, council members, this parcel did have, I know it's tough to see from an aerial, but it did have a lot of grade. And this parse here is shown here with L2 here, that this part is right in here, was going to remain natural. So this is...
Could I suggest in the future that for something like this, that we annotate the map that says this is going to remain in a natural state, so that I don't have to ask this question, or future council people don't have to ask this question?
Yes, sir.
So thank you very much.
Well, and I'd like to add to that, because you know how I am about hillsides. And looking at this, I could not tell exactly what the slope was. So when you brought that up, I mean, looking at this topography, I can't tell what that slope is. And so, you know, I would appreciate that. It seems like at the planning and zoning level, we can tell a little more of that fine detail, but here, I really can't. And so adding to that, you're saying that there's not going to be any construction of that area, but what is the actual slope of this whole parcel area then?
Do we get drainage maps at the preliminary plat level, or do they come at a final plat level?
We have preliminary drainage statements at this level. At the final plat is when we'll get the engineering construction drawings submitted.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry, Joanne.
Well, you can you answer that at this time? What this area slope is at?
Ms. Mayor, Councilman, if I could defer that to the Newland
I
representative.
appreciate it. Thank you.
It's less than 20%.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Brad Shelton. And I'm with
Pull the microphone if you would, so they can hear.
Good evening. My name is Brad Shelton. I'm with Copperfield Management. Our address is 10401 East McDowell Mountain Ranch Road in Scottsdale. I am here on behalf of Newland Communities, representing them on this application that we're hearing this evening. Sheet L 1.2, I believe it is, the topic of the discussion. That area does have some slope to it. It is also adjacent to existing residential land. The current plan will be to leave that in its native condition with native plants that are already there. Adjacent to that area is also our amenity feature for the community. There will be a tot lot. There will be a 12 by 12 ramada. There will be a grass area for the residents to enjoy. But there is not a significant amount of grade. I should say there's not a prohibitive amount of grade there that would preclude us from developing. There is some grade, but not in such a way I believe that would prohibit any development in that area.
That didn't answer my question, though. What is the actual slope of the area?
That I do not know off the top of my head, no. I'm sorry. The topography is shown on the preliminary plat. Steve, if you have that available, it's right there on that page number 2. I'm new to this technology here, so forgive me if I'm off base. There you go. Is there a way to zoom in on that? I know it's very small and the lines are very light, but if you have this information in your packet, you can see that there is some of the topography lines are called out. You see here we have generally sloping from this area here down to this area here.
But it isn't.
It does not exceed the 20% slope that would qualify as being undevelopable.
Yeah, and 20% slope is the qualifying
Correct. That's
slope.
my
I mean,
understanding.
that's what's in my books. I live in Estrella, so I know what's what.
Well, there's always developable qualification, and then there's Joanne's qualification of slope. And so that's why I asked the question. I know what development wants to have for slope, and obviously cannot go beyond. I mean, that's just, obvious, but there's still, a limit to me as to how much you go into a hillside. And so since I haven't seen the area and I can't tell from this map, that's why I have to ask that question.
Okay.
Okay, I can't ask any more. We obviously don't have the information.
Are there any other questions while I'm
No,
here?
but I would strongly recommend that in the future you have, when you bring forth preliminary plats, that you have your landscape architect annotate where it's going to remain as natural, so that you don't get these questions.
We will.
Thank you.
What one is that? That's
Any other
D?
questions?
Okay, well, I will not be voting for that.
That was D.
D.
All right, I've got a question for the attorney. It looks like we got A, B, and D off. C was not pulled, I guess, right? So how do we move forward right now? Is it a roll call vote on C?
You didn't ask us.
Yeah, I asked you. Oh, well, did anybody else want anything pulled?
We don't have to pull anything.
So, well, he pulled, Roger pulled A, B, and D.
Yeah, but all the questions have been answered. That's
The
us.
questions have been answered.
Well, I guess that's my question for the attorney. We didn't pull them. Let me ask me where we go from here.
The technical answer is this. Once you pull them, you have to consider them, vote on them separately. When you pull, it's a little different than having just a question on a consent agenda. You pulled them and had presentations, so technically you should vote on them separately.
Because Roger wanted them pulled, right?
Which our procedures allow citizens to pull
pull
items
it.
from the
Okay.
consent agenda.
So now we have C that was not pulled.
You can make a motion and vote on C, that's your only remaining consent item, then consider the other items separately.
They've got to be separate. Okay. So
Technically, that's the answer.
I'll move that we approve consent item C.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we've got a motion from Councilmember Loretano, a second from Councilmember Cavalier. That's roll call?
Correct. On
Roll
your
call
consent.
vote.
Councilmember Sousa?
Aye.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Gelser?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzillo?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, now,
Mr. Mayor, I recommend that we approve item A, the minutes, or I make a motion that we approve item A, the minutes of the meeting of February 14th.
do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Is that a roll call vote as well? Nope.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Next one is B. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right, so we got a motion from Councilmember Cavalier and a second from Councilmember Sousa. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. That's 6-0. All right, then we have what, D? Do I have a motion for D?
No, it's C.
I mean, excuse me.
Already did
Oh,
C.
we did see.
We did C. It's D.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's D.
I move that we approve D, item D.
All right, so we got a motion from Councilmember Gelser, second from Councilmember Sousa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So we got 5-1.
5-1.
5-1. Now we go to the business, I guess, open public hearing. I've got something here to read as it results to the public hearing. So great. This is the time and place set forth for the hearing on the assessment and proceedings for the McDowell Road Commercial Corridor Improvement District. The mayor and council of the city of Goodyear initiated, 1, the construction, widening, and improvement of the following streets. 1, McDowell Road from Pebble Creek Parkway to Bullard Avenue. 2, Monte Vista Drive from Pebble Creek Parkway to 151st Avenue. 3, south half of Encanto Avenue from 151st Avenue to Bullard Avenue. 4, Pebble Creek Parkway from I-10 freeway to approximately the Thomas Road alignment. 5, 151st Avenue from McDowell Road to Encanto Avenue. And 6, Bullard Avenue from I-10 freeway to Cambridge Drive. And the improvements and construction of Bullard Wash Drainage Channel from Interstate 10 freeway to Virginia Avenue. Notice of this hearing has been published as required by law and also mailed to each property owner and to the contractor Polis. At this hearing, this council must determine if the construction is complete, if the assessment is fair and equitable under all circumstances, if the amounts assessed are equal to or less than the benefits received by each respective parcel assessed, and rule on all other objections raised. No council member may have an interest in any lot or parcel converted by the assessments. The owner of each parcel has received a notice of the amount such parcel was assessed. I will ask any landowners or owners or persons interested in any lot subject to assessment who object to the assessment to make their objections known first. Is there anyone present who is directly interested in the work or in the assessment who has any objections to the legality of the assessment or to any of the previous proceedings connected with the project, or who claim that the work has not been performed according to the construction contract? If so, would you please come to the microphone and, for the record, state your name and address. Also, please state if you are objecting the legality of the assessment, the previous proceedings, or the work that has not been performed according to the contract. Each person should state their name, address, and state the reasons for the objection. David Ramirez, the city attorney, has the assessment available for you to reference if needed. After each person has spoken, I will ask the bond counsel or the city staff to respond.
I thought what I would do is just give a very brief outline of the process that we're doing tonight, and I wanted to start with introducing several of the people here in case there are any questions. Bond counsel is Scott Ruby from Gus Rosenfeld, representing the district engineer firm of Wood Patel is Peter Hemingway, and also a subcontractor, J.R. Pooler, that did the assessment engineering on this project. Also from the city is David Ramirez, of course, who for this purpose has the title of Superintendent of Streets. The McDowell Road Commercial Corridor Improvement District was adopted and formed on November 13th, 2006 by resolution of the City Council. And an assessment district is an area within the city that will be assessed for the proportionate share for the costs of improvement that benefit multiple properties. And the assessments are done in accordance with typical engineering fashion as they go through there. Vice Mayor Pizzillo outlined the improvements, but the general boundaries of those improvements were Bullard Avenue, west over to Pebble Creek Parkway, I-10 north up to Monte Vista Drive. The infrastructure improvements that were included within the assessment area were funded by bonds that were sold for the specific purpose of putting in those improvements. Those bonds are paid back by the property owners based upon the assessments that are done. All the improvements have been completed, and by state law, we're required to hold a public hearing for the property owners involved to express any concerns that they may have. At the January 24th meeting, the council received the certification from the superintendent of streets that these improvements were completed and that work was done. The assessments have been allocated to the benefiting properties within the district. At the completion of the project and within the 3-year time frame required by federal income tax law, the excess proceeds generally consisting of, actually, excuse my terminology, the monies remaining in the construction fund, which generally consisted of interest earnings over the period of construction, were placed in the debt service fund and used to pay the interest on the obligation at the time that they were placed in there. With that, you can ask for any comments from the property owners, and I'll be available for any questions, as well as the team that I introduced be available for any questions you may have.
Are there any comments from the property owners? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Whoops, yes.
I do have Roger Matlin would like to speak on this item. I don't know if he's a property owner or not.
Well,
He did fill out a card.
Let me Let me ask the question of the attorney. It's my understanding, is it only the property owners that can respond on this particular issue? I'll ask the bond lawyer.
Vice Mayor, members of council, Scott Ruby with Gus Rosenfeld. Because it is a public hearing, he could come up and make a speech, but again, it is not a formal objection because he has no standing or interest in the property that's been assessed.
Okay, with that, thank you. Roger, come on up.
Good evening, Roger Matlin. And first off, I'd like to say I do have an interest in this, in that I'm a taxpayer here in the city. And so I don't own a property there, but I am obligated in some way as a taxpayer. So I think you might want to check your words. The questions that I had, because I read the presentation, and that is just, one, why did it take so long? Why does it take 5 years to complete these improvements? And I just wanted to also know, when were the bonds issued? Are they issued at the beginning of the process, or are they issued as a takeout bond during the process? Is the city basically paying for this while it's being built out, or is it being assessed during that period? What were the dollar amounts? Those aren't included in the presentation. And are the assessments based on the actual cost of the construction, or is it based on an assessment of something different? And if so, what are those costs? So it was just, those items were not in the presentation. I just wanted to know what those were.
Okay, thank you, Roger. I've got a question for the city attorney. From the questions, it's my understanding it was a speech. Can we still have the ability to respond to those questions?
Sure, it's public.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Vice Mayor, members of council, first off, my words come directly from statute. This process started in '06. It begins and follows a very precise number of procedures as outlined specifically in Arizona Revised Statute. Those include adoption of a resolution of intention. There is a waiting period after notice is given for another hearing. Then you adopt a resolution ordering the work. Thereafter, if that is approved, plans and specs are drawn. That takes quite a while to draw plans and specs. Once the plans and specs were drawn, then we went out for construction bids. Construction bids came in. We awarded that, again, subject to a protest period that was duly noticed. After that time period, then we sell bonds in the amount of that bid plus incidental expenses. In that process, just prior to that, we do send out an assessment to the property owners. They have an option to pay in cash. Some did, most didn't. The net balance that remained unpaid went to bond. That was $47,165,000, I believe. That money was placed in the construction fund and used to pay the contractor as a normal city contract is paid, i.e. in monthly installments based upon invoices submitted. There is a retention amount, as again in all city contracts, while the work is being performed. Once the work is performed, we are required to finalize all costs and expenses, which again takes some time. The contractors are also finishing up the punch list items during those times, and that has been done. The city is not liable in any way for the payment of these bonds, with the exception of if the property owner was unable to pay and did not pay, their land would be then foreclosed upon. The proceeds of that foreclosure sale would be used to pay the delinquent amount. That's the protection. As you know, going into this deal, we had land values that were adequate to support the bonds. If the bond, for some reason, if the foreclosure couldn't take place, then the city would strike that off to their fund and make that payment, subject to then going through the sale process. The city's very familiar with this. They do it on a number of improvement districts that they have. And so consequently, especially once the improvements are in, the value of the land goes up. And there's
That's
been
the
no
only
defaults.
That's the only time that the tax dollars that are being paid by the citizens of this city would be used. Is that correct?
That's correct, and then again, that's a temporary thing because once the property is sold, it is sold for the entire assessment, not just the delinquent installment, so that assessment gets eradicated.
Thank you.
I think that was all his questions. I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just follow up on one thing, Scott.
Yes, sir.
I think it's in relation to Councilmember Sousa's question. Just for the benefit of the public, the city of Goodyear is not paying for anything related to this. This is being totally paid for by the property owners.
With the exception that he just pointed out, the last statement he made.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Sousa, Manager Fishbach, the property owner is assessed for the full amount of construction, the entire amount of the bonds. The assessment levied against the property totals the amount of the bonds. It can't be less. So in that sense, the city is not obligated. The property owner is obligated to pay the principal and interest installments as they come due twice a year. Again, if there's any delinquency there, we do go through a collection process with notice and that sort of thing in order to try to get the payment. If there is no payment, we then do a foreclosure sale. If for some reason it cannot be sold at that time for the amount of the assessment, it is struck off to the city. The city then makes that delinquent payment and holds the property until such time as it can be sold and then reimburses itself. So there is an intervening time in there where city general fund is advancing the money.
But it's only if it's foreclosed on.
That's correct.
Yeah.
No, it's only if it cannot be foreclosed upon.
Okay.
And then it is repaid at the end.
Yes, as soon as the property can be sold, the city does so. Yeah. And again, we have hundreds of assessments in this city. And the process, I think in the last, even during these difficult times, there might have been maybe 3 sales, Larry. If that many. You start out with some more delinquencies, but as you work through the process, people pay or their lender pays. So again, in this case, I think for the last 3 or 4 years, we've ended up with 2-3 sales max. And again, the city fund has not been used in those circumstances at all.
I believe you covered all the questions.
Thank you.
With that, we will, first we got to close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read resolution by title.
Adopt resolution 11-1419, approving the assessment for City of Goodyear, Arizona, McDowell Road Commercial Corridor Improvement District, determining that the construction work for such improvement is completed and making technical corrections.
With that, questions? We want to start to the right. Councilmember
We have to
Cavalier?
have a motion first.
Okay, excuse me.
But I'll make a motion.
All right, got a motion
we
from
approve
Cavalier.
That we adopt a resolution 11-1419.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we got
My
a
elders take
motion
care of
from Councilmember Cavalier, and we got a second from Councilmember Sousa. With that, we'll start to the right. Okay,
No
Councilmember
questions.
Cavalier. Councilmember Gelser?
Yes, I have a question. I think this would be for Scott. If the city, at this point in time, the Bullard Wash Park is inaccessible, there's really no parking at that location on Encanto Boulevard. If the city wanted to do some type of parking improvement, how would that affect the assessment or the property? How would that affect the property?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Gelser, the work has been performed in accordance with the plans and specs, and a court, because of that, property in and around the area has benefited, and their assessment is based on that benefit. If we want to now alter or change or enhance what is there via a parking lot or something like that, as long as we don't interfere with the benefit to the property owner through our actions, i.e. reduce the benefit, then we could go ahead at the city's own expense and do such a thing.
Okay.
But we could not do anything which would impair their benefit.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
Councilmember Osborne?
No questions.
Councilmember Sousa? I have no questions. We done, Cavalier? We done? All right, roll call?
Councilmember Cavalier.
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne.
Aye.
Councilmember Loretano.
Aye.
Councilmember Gelzer.
Aye.
Councilmember Sousa.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pizzolo.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Now it's time for information items. I guess start left and work over there. Councilmember Gelzer, anything that you'd like to share?
I attended the the grand opening of the Waste Management Arizona Regional Recycling Plant last week, and it is an amazing piece of technology. And the other thing, I also attended the Arizona Town Hall Regional Meeting. Thank you.
Councilmember Osborne?
I've been away. I did have Fear Factor on Saturday night, though.
Councilmember Sousa?
I have nothing. Thank
Councilmember Cavalier?
Yes, well, we had CDAC Wednesday night, and we, if there's any money that comes out of Washington for CDBG funds, we did a estimate about 60% of last year's, so that should give, and Goodyear was earmarked for $200,000 for the improvement on the water line or the flood control area. So that was done Wednesday night. That's the toughest meeting of the year, but we got through it. Then Wednesday during the day, I attended the Valley Metro's Mobile Center ribbon cutting ceremony, and it's down on 44th Street and Washington. This is where the ADA people can go down and be certified, get a certification process going for the ADA to ride trains or the buses. And it's a beautiful facility, and it's completed. It's probably the last of our facilities that we will see for this year. Also Friday, I attended all day Friday. We had the annual Friends of the Transit 9th Annual Conference, and down at the Hyatt Regency. It was great. It was it's probably the best one they've ever had. But all I heard was Denver this, Denver that, Denver's the model city, Denver's done everything right, and we need to follow. So with that it was a good conference, and I learned a whole lot about how especially light rail is being developed, and that's something that we're going to have a work session on here soon. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Loretano?
Well, I and several other people up here also attended the opening game for spring training. It was really good, although it was very cold, and there were plenty of seats available. So if you didn't go, there's a month left to go see a game.
I have nothing. I was also there at the spring training. Again, we'll trying to figure out a way we get more people out there. That would be great. Manager's summary of current events.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have two items that I want to brief you on this evening as soon as they get put up onto the screen. Thank you. And the first one is to talk to you about the sponsorships at the ballpark. Sponsorships for 2011 are up year-to-date $18,320, or 6% compared to 2010. I think it's important that we recognize the sponsors that are contributing the $300 and some thousand to the success of the ballpark. EGM Development, Coca-Cola, Westcor, Ticketmaster, Enterprise, McDonald's, Big O Tires, Carly's Ices, Cookin' on Wood, Hilton, Papa John's, Sam Adams, West Valley Hospital, Palm Valley Apartments, Copper Hospitality, Manuel's, Island Noodles, Hilgers, Orthodontics, Robex Juice, Mr. Softy, Cancer Treatment Centers of America, Wilhelm Automotive, Dino's Greek and Italian, Waste Management, Trey Rios Golf Course, Joseph Carroll Homes, Southwest Specialty Foods, Desert Ice Enterprises, National Deli, Rose Packing, Raoul and Teresa's, Village Inn, Claim Jumper, Shooter's World, Sparklets, Firestone Beer, Raven Golf Club at Verado, Marilee's Sports Grill, Pacific Monarch, PBR, New Belgium, Comfort Suites, Pyramid Brewery, Maytag, Swap Smart, Clubhouse Grill, The Wigwam, McCompanies, Bank of America, and Miller Cruise. Each of these companies has made a substantial commitment to the ballpark, totaling the $327,355, and we thank them for that, because without their support, running the ballpark would be less successful. And by the way, the opening day did produce 5 more people than last year.
Well, that's a start.
Yeah, it was cold, but we had 4,405 attendants compared to 4,400 last year.
Well, you had NASCAR too to compete with.
Yeah.
We had NASCAR, and then the other, I think everybody wanted to go over see the Diamondbacks over in the new Talking Stick Arena or baseball park, because on the TV they looked full. But the second thing I'd like to talk about is the Goodyear Wellness Clinic, 2010 fourth quarter report. The total number of patients we had during this fourth quarter was 729. It's an increase of 12% compared to the fourth quarter of 2009. Average reimbursement is approximately $75. Estimated savings to the city is $54,675. The Wellness Clinic is one initiative designed to reduce overall health care costs, and it does it very well. We have 1 physician's assistant and 2 nurses man the Wellness Clinic, and these people save us a good deal over a period of a year. The Goodyear Wellness Clinic provides an even higher cost savings, though, because as many of these patients would have been seen in an urgent care, an emergency department, or by a specialist, all of which would be more costly options to the city. The Wellness Clinic I mentioned is one initiative designed to reducing the city's health costs, and it's one that came up from the employees and this insurance committee that we were working with. And the insurance company partnered with us and said, yes, this is a good idea to help keep the costs down to the provider, to the city, to the user. So we're very pleased with that, and I just wanted to report on that. That's it this evening, Mr. Mayor.
What are the hours of that clinic, do you know?
8 to 12, Monday through Saturday.
Monday through Saturday, 8 to 12?
We've added several days now.
Okay. Staff summary of follow-up actions?
I don't really have any this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Council members directing any inquiries? Any of staff? Go ahead.
They were talking about getting a tour of Aero Turbine. I think that would be great if anyone else would be interested.
Sure. Yeah, I think it would be fun if you get one set up.
We'd be happy to set it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before I mention the future work sessions, I guess we're going to adjourn this meeting and go back into the other. Does anybody, before we do that, want a few minutes to hit the restroom before we adjourn? 5, 10 minutes? Yes? No? No, you good? Okay, with that, future council meetings, we've got one coming March 14th, work session, 14th, the regular meeting. Following the work session on the 21st, we have a work session followed by work session on the 28th. On the same day, on the 28th, we have a regular meeting. With that, we're going to adjourn the council meeting.